man, you listen to this, brother. I'm ready to go and, swan dive off the Washington Monument, man. It's like, God dang. Take 30 years to get a damn 10% down payment. But we know that even the average, that the days when white young people can buy a home, that's, is gone if the parents don't give it to them. It used to be working class families owning homes in Brooklyn or whatever, right? And then sending it, but but I got some other things I want to talk about based on, but man, this, like I said, this guy here, man, I was like, damn, I need to put earplugs in my ear, man. I know it's bad out here for the colored peoples, but damn. But I've something to say seriously here, and that is that I enjoy hearing about, and I'm saying this also to you, my good brother, the freedom budget, hearing about things like that can be very inspiring. However, the freedom budget seems to me to have been politically utopian, unfeasible from the moment it was born. And so to reconstitute that as a real moment of radical possibility doesn't make sense to me. The freedom budget, Jesus goodness, that was dead on arrival. No. And so the question is, how do we critique past left-wing strategies for political emancipation of blacks, et cetera, et cetera? How realistic do these things have to be? I sometimes get worried when I hear people talk. Whenever I feel potentially cathartic about something, I know I better run fast to get away from it. Because that ain't the reality of this life. Not in America, at least. And so the issue is, what are potential avenues to advance Afro-American economic inclusion? And for me, this freedom budget discourse doesn't go much in that direction. In a similar respect, I don't think the reparations discourse goes. What is the possibility? Reparations. I'm trying to get to the point where police can't shoot black folk on the street and walk away and get, right? Not to mention having their tax money used to help fund black advancement. No. Reparations, you don't think, that's not even on the table. Now you can say to me, well, you got to, you give me that Robert Kennedy quote, I see, dream, and say why not, and all that kind of stuff. But I'm like, hell, if I find a lot of black folks out here fighting for reparations, I just assume they have, maybe some good jobs and some time on their hand. Because politically, what is the mechanism to obtain that? I don't even know at present if Afro-American poor folk are even included in general American empathy among white folks. I don't have no reason to assume that. That when people see poor blacks on TV or something, they say, oh, that's terrible. That's an American citizen suffering. Hell no. How do I even get blacks included in the moral universe of concern for America, for non-black Americans? Does that make sense? And I don't even want to say non-black Americans. I just want to say Americans, because I'm not sure our president has them very much included either. Poor blacks. No? And how do we, because in the end, it would come down to what policies does his administration advocate for generating inclusion of Afro-Americans. And when I hear that one of his main policies is directed towards black men. What's the damn thing called? What do you say?
My brother's keeper.
My brother's keepers. When I, this, I'm sorry, because any policy that's directed toward blacks that doesn't come with funding doesn't exist. It's like kissing, like it's like renaming a street instead of fixing the houses on the street. You just call the street Malcolm X Way. And get some people out there to demonstrate, and everybody has a cathartic moment. Oh man, it's symbolic inclusion. No, what the brother's keeper? If it has money to it, it's not a policy. He doesn't do that with the defense budget. So we're gonna call this security blanket 10. And then you look up and you say, well, damn, he cut the budget. That's great, man. He's just, no, hell no. That's scam. And we have to think through why. But I'm saying this is linked to the absence of blacks being within the realm of moral empathy of the country at large. That we are not, and it's particularly young people, and I don't even want to say young males, I mean, young males and young black women are not within. It's just not there. It's like there's no dynamic that views them as missing. Their contribution is not sufficient. The only people that think about black folks as potentially contributors are whom? Fucking Marines, right? The very most raunchy aspects of capitalism that we still run around here and voluntarily and call voluntary service, right? We have a military that allows bourgeois folks who have the most influence over policy, not to have to serve. And we send our working class and poor folks to serve. And disproportionately even Southerners, right? White Southerners too, no? Y'all go and fight, because in a sense our logic is if we as Americans are gonna have to risk any lives, let's risk the lives of those who are least valuable. So they'll set up the recruiting thing in the down the hall, across the street, across the hall from the vice principal's office, right? I mean, not in New Canaan High or, Walt Whitman or something out here in DC, but in all of these urban schools, no? And that rationale where, these black folks are allowed to serve in the military despite the fact that they're de facto displaced citizens or not empowered citizens is really sick. But did I think Obama was going to challenge it? No. And the issue is, why hasn't there been more opposition to Obama from poor folks, white and black? And in part because our political system is black folks through racial reification feel like they're included in this somehow with Obama, right? I once made a mistake and went on one of these radio stations here in DC. This is my hometown, by the way. And it always struck me when I was driving over here this morning and got lost, how segregated this damn town was when I grew up. I said, damn, I don't even know how to get over here then with Georgetown. I mean, this was a different world. I'm very serious. I'm like, damn, Reservoir Road, I know that's over here somewhere. But that wasn't near Northeast anyway, I guess it just tickled the hell out of me. But I think how opposition has been, we have a system where black working class, lower middle class families, and I have colleagues that studied this in Queens, right? I teach at the Grad Center at City University in Midtown. Studied how many black families lost housing during, right? The housing crisis, right? How could that happen and the president not raise his goddamn sorry ass head? No? Or nobody be on him about that? Now, recently we had some economists come and say, look, It was just his right-wing politics that we tried to convince them all along that if you bail out the homeowners, the banks will get their money. He's like, no, I'm going to bail out the banks. The hell with the homeowners. That's what they did they not? And it was devastating. And NAACP, all these other organizations, they sat by. And didn't, and I'm just amazed, like, why wasn't there more opposition? And I can't say anything except that the president is black. And particularly when folks see little kids running around and, oh, that's nice. He has wonderful daughters and, no. But you would have thought this would have been a major moment of somebody standing up, even bourgeois Negroes standing up saying, listen, we can't let these folks lose their homes, especially through what, tricky lending practices and all this kind of stuff. And we can sit up here and have all this documented and no political. Think about it. How this is an amazing moment that politically electing a black president in some sense depoliticized elements of the black community because it looked like therefore you were included. And it's almost like, I used to jump on like political commentators all the time, like when David Dinkins won mayor of New York and somebody was mayor in LA, Tom Bradley was, oh man, blacks now run LA and blacks run New York. And I would say to myself, till I could get to the damn microphone, like, blacks, it ain't like David Dinkins is going around polling all the Negroes, like, what should we do? Mm-hmm. Right? There's no blacks running New York. David Dinkins was running New York with his colleagues and his constituents. No? Y'all are looking at me like I'm not. There's no intrinsic inclusion based on ethnicity or race, right? Otherwise, white folks wouldn't have had any problem ever in this damn country, right? We had enough white leaders. That's not the issue. The issue is what kind of structures do we have in terms of inclusion of all these folks and accountability. And I used to think that, well, now once we get through Obama, the black folks would be more sophisticated. And I don't believe that anymore. I don't have any reason to believe that. Like I said, I was crazy, went on one of these radio stations here in D.C., man, and folks called me up, boy, they were like, ooh, Lord, if I didn't have like a sufficient dose of narcissism. Professor Wines, I just think where'd you go to school? I said, I went to Harvard. Yeah, see, that's the problem right there. And I was like, yeah, that's true. They didn't know. That was true. That not only gave me some neuroses psychologically, but gave me some neuroses in my bank account. That's been a burden in my life. But the idea, like somehow it prevented you from having authentic concern of other black folks, that was scary. And that's what that part of it didn't bother me. Because I was like, this is foolish. Mm-hmm. Like criticizing Obama is somehow doing something anti-black. So I don't know what any mechanism is. Right now, I used to, and then I'll close on this I used to think that I really get angered immensely when I thought about the NAACP not taking a more activist role around the housing issue. I mean, they would say certain things, but, it should have been that black folks could go and obtain these balloon loans, and the NAACP doesn't have a mechanism where they can educate and say, listen, you come here and clear your loan through us first before you get this or whatever. Even though that's not a civil right issue, it is in some ways. I'm like, this is what, ever since then I've been trying to figure out ways of trying to get them off of this kind of liberal civil rights agenda, where somebody basically has to, call you nigger and beat you in the head with a brick and then they'll get up, maybe sue them or something. I mean, you still may lose that. But how do we get some of our more less subjugated folks or more actively involved in just creating greater political capital among poor and working class folks, which only means for me more information about what their real opportunities are, right? That was one, I mean, so those are the fights I've been, that one and the fight over, I just still cannot believe that we as a society don't have more, and this is all like reactive here, that we don't have more legal aid for poor folks. Anybody that wants to go see a travesty, just go and sit in any criminal court, DC if you want, and see how many cases come through there that the public defender is not interested, can't defend the person. They don't have the time, whatever, the resources, and they just nominate those cases just go through like that. How do you plead guilty, right? You've seen that. And we call that what? They have everybody's has a right to legal representation. And I'm saying to myself, okay, why can't I, within even the liberal notion of justice, get more bourgeois folks active in this fight? No? To just give people more their proper legal representation, that they don't have to take pleas. Y'all are looking at me like, this Negro's talking some craziness. All right, I'm gonna shut up here. But I think it's, and I ain't trying to bring heaven. I will tell you, you want to go, you want to get heaven, just go to church. But I do think there are some realistic things that can be done, but I don't know what the utility is right now fighting over reparations. And I don't even know what the utility at the time was of fighting over the freedom budget. Now, I know I'm sounding cantankerous.
Just a little.
Yes, okay.